isn't linear. We don't move from step 5 to step 7 in a nice way. Sometimes we go back to step 5 and redo step 6 and so on. I like to also think of it as linear in format. Well, how do we start? Well, there's a couple of ways you can do that. And right now in your book, I am on page 7. Page 7 of the How Do I Mark That book. I like to start with the IRP outcomes, but there are different ways to do it. Let's get into that. If you take a look at the 3 bullets under A, learning requires the active participation of the student. People learn in a variety of ways and at different rates. And learning is both an individual and a group process. Now, these are 3 key things to keep in mind as we're working with kids. I mean, really, when we think about kids' lives now, iPods, cell phones, the hours of every day that kids spend, 2, 3, 4 hours in front of the internet, it's a very, very visual world the kids live in. They want to be active in something. That's how they understand. That's how they're beginning to understand things. So learning requires the active participation of the student more than ever. And again, people learn in a variety of ways and at different rates. We don't all learn at the same rate. Same with the kids. So we need to keep that in mind. And learning is both an individual and a group process. Both key things here. Or you can start with the activities. You might have activities that the kids want to do, and then you go back to the IRP outcomes and you find out, yeah, we could do this. This is part of what's acceptable in our grade level, and get the kids moving that way. That's also a lot of fun. Okay, taking a look at page 9 in your How Do I Mark That book, the thing that I like to do is to take a look at, and I'll use math as an example. Of course, you can use these templates with any subject area that you're teaching and any grade level. But I like to take a look at the resources that I'm using. If I'm using a series of resources, and I like to say, I wonder what they say about the big idea. You can see in the top left-hand corner the big idea under unit topic. And so I think that's really important because kids will say, well, why are we doing this? And I'm thinking, well, how are these concepts going to develop and why are they important and so on. So I do some of that thinking before the unit starts. So I look in the resource and I see, what are the big ideas? That's cool. And how will the concepts develop? That's laid out for me. And why are these concepts important? Now, if I can't find it in the resource, I'm going to find it on my own. I'm going to think about that before I get involved with the kids and learning with this because I think it's really, really important. So I grab a teacher guide and I look and I see, these outcomes are the same outcomes in the IRPs. Fantastic. I want to use something that matches. It makes it a lot easier for me down the road. And I see that there's a series of outcomes, or if I can't find it in the resource, I can turn to the IRPs and see the outcomes there with the suggested achievement indicators, which again are really going to help me plan out what we're doing. So I take the outcomes from the resource or from the IRPs and I place them into the unit planner. And so that's the first step right there. And the big question I'm going to ask myself is, are there outcomes that should be weighed more heavily or more important? Are there some outcomes that are going to take more time? Some of these questions I'm not going to know until I'm deep into the unit with the kids, really thinking through things. Wow, we're going to need to spend way more time on this. Or, gosh, the kids are really getting this. They've had some of this last year. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. We can move on. So some of it I won't know till I'm working with the kids. But if we see the example on the screen here, I think explain the difference between an expression and an equation, outcome number 2. That's important, but it's not as important as the last one where they have to model and solve problems that can be represented by linear equations, so and so and so, concretely, pictorially, symbolically, where A, B, and C are whole numbers and so on. That last outcome, number 4, is going to take way more time in the classroom, guaranteed. And I think it's much more important than outcome number 2. So that's going to affect their letter grade down the road, perhaps, on which outcomes are more important. Let's take a look at the unit planner. Here's how you set it up in your book. First thing, and again, this is all explained in your book, and you can just follow along or just watch this guide. So first, copy a class set. Number 2, put the student names in each page. Number 3, place the copies in a binder. Number 4, pretty simple, separate each set of unit planners with dividers, as you can see in my example there. And that's it. You've made one copy. You've got your topic, your big idea, you've got the outcomes. In the example on the screen, there's only 3 outcomes for the life science unit, and you're on your way. Okay, let's take a look at this unit planner again, but now, how do we place the marks into 1, 2, and 3, and 4. I'm a bit anal about this, so I use colors. I know that some teachers don't, some teachers do. It's totally up to you. What you can do here is assess using color. So for example, on October 11th, I use blue. In number 2, I use blue to record that. So on October 11th, they didn't use the pro and cons. If you can see, I made a little note there. Green on October 15th with the same outcome, analyze how different organisms adapt to their environments. You can see there. So it's the same outcome, first one. But now, they got a 3, but they didn't show any data. So that's a really good piece to do on October 19th. Really effective. It's really working out. So you can see that for that outcome, number 1, by reporting time, they've got a couple checks in the 3. They really do have a good understanding. And on the report card, of course, it would be interesting to convey why the student may have gotten a 2 and what we can do to solve it. So what do we have? 2 different ways of doing it. On the left-hand side, it's the old way where I had all the stuff written across the top, all the student names down, and all the kids all had to do all the activities all on the same due date. Well, I'm not being airy-fairy here because I know that sometimes there are due dates and that's life. If we're doing a play, for instance, in school and the opening night is April 7th and the actor doesn't have their lines ready, they don't get another chance. April 7th is the date of the performance. I understand that. But at the same time, if I think that kids learn at different rates and in a variety of ways, and that some kids struggle with certain things or need to do more projects to show an outcome, and some kids maybe fewer projects to show an outcome if they have a really good understanding, then if I do what's on the left-hand side, all kids have to do all the same thing. Really what I'm saying is that all kids are the same. All kids are the same and learn in the same way, which isn't true. So let's get rid of that. Using the right-hand side, I can have kids doing different projects, or some doing more projects or fewer projects or so on, because I'm starting with the outcomes, not with the activities. And then if I color code it at the end here, I can see that if red is near the report card time, I can say, well, there's some red ones in the 3, but there's 1 or 2 in the 2, and so on, that would be a B. And again, that's all up to you, and that's explained on page 10, and how do I mark that book. Of course, I'm also keeping in mind what the ministry might say, and you can do that with your province or state. In the BC where I'm doing this, that grades 4 to 7, we include letter grades, and we have written comments. In grades 10 to 12, we have percentages. So nowhere in the how do I mark that book do you really see an emphasis on percentages. So question is, how do I get from a blank unit planner to one with check marks? I can give kids assignments, projects, tests, unit tests, unit problems, rubrics. I can give kids explore activities. I can take a look myself for what assessment is and then move to a 1, 2, 3, 4. The cool thing is that using that unit planner, I can have a test that's out of 30, let's say, and say to the kids, if you get between 27 and 30, that would be a 4 on your unit planner.